Over 100 years of Wimbledon, and not a single Filipino player had ever walked into that draw already seeded. And when word of it reached Manny Pacquiao, the greatest Filipino athlete to ever live, he went on national television and said plainly that he was proud of her. She's 21 years old. The man who first taught her this sport isn't alive to see any of it. And by every indication, she's only just getting started. Here's what you need to understand about the Philippines in tennis before any of the rest of this makes sense. In basketball, Filipinos have an entire culture built around the sport. In boxing, there's Pacquiao, an entire generation's answer to the question of whether a Filipino athlete could be the best in the world at something. In tennis, there was nobody. Not one Filipino woman had ever cracked the WTA's top 100. Not one had ever reached a Grand Slam main draw as a seeded player. There was no blueprint, no older player to call and ask what it actually feels like, what you do when it gets hard, how any of it is even possible. There was nothing to point to. So when a little girl in Quezon City picked up a racket at 4 years old and fell in love with the game, she wasn't following anyone's footsteps. She was building the first ones. Her name is Alexandra Eala. Most people outside the Philippines still don't know it. They're about to. She grew up around a country club in Pasig, and this isn't a story about a kid who had everything handed to her, because that's never really how these stories go. Her first coach wasn't a professional, wasn't a former tour player. It was her grandfather, a club-level amateur named Roberto Mano, known to the family as Lolo Bob. Every single day he showed up with a basket of balls and fed them to Alex and her brother on that court in Pasig. No days off, no excuses, just a man who believed in something he had no way of proving yet. At 12, she won a prestigious junior event in France. Someone from the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca was watching, and they offered her a full scholarship at 13 years old to one of the most elite tennis academies on earth. Sit with that for a second, 13 years old. New country, new language. No Filipino player who'd ever walked that specific path before her. Nobody to call who'd understand exactly what she was stepping into. She left the court in Pasig, left her grandfather and his basket of balls, and flew to Spain to find out what she was actually capable of. Lolo Bob stayed behind. He passed away in 2019. He never saw Wimbledon, he never saw any of what came after, but she never let go of a single thing he taught her. By 2025, people inside the sport had started to notice her. She was climbing rankings, winning matches at smaller events, building a quiet reputation among people who follow tennis closely. Outside the sport, outside the Philippines, almost nobody had heard her name yet. Then came the 2025 Miami Open. She entered on a wild card, meaning she hadn't even qualified through the normal process. Organizers simply wanted her in the draw. Her ranking at the time sat around 140th in the world. She beat Madison Keys, ranked 5th. Then she walked onto the court against Iga Swiatek, world number 2 at the time, a multiple Grand Slam champion who'd been dominating the sport for years. A 19-year-old wild card ranked 140th beat her. Back home, it was treated like a national holiday. Social media exploded. Every sports channel in the country was talking about her. She wasn't just a promising tennis player anymore, she'd become a symbol. Proof, an answer to a question well over 100 million people had been quietly carrying for years, whether one of them could actually compete at the very top of world sport. Then came Rome, just weeks later. The whole tennis world was watching now, waiting to see if Miami had been real or just a lucky week. A player named Marta Kostyuk beat her 6-0, 6-1. 10 straight games lost, live in under an hour, cameras capturing every second of it. The player who'd just beaten the world number 2 was being dismantled on live television, and every doubter who'd been holding back suddenly had their opening to ask the obvious question out loud. Was Miami just a fluke? Here's what she did after Rome. Nothing dramatic. No revenge promises in a press conference, no public meltdown, no reinvention of her game or her coaching setup. She went back to work, quietly, methodically, exactly the way her grandfather had taught her. Feet on the ground, stay coachable, keep working. Then the 2026 grass season arrived. She went to Birmingham and won the tournament, her second professional title. Then she went to Berlin, again as a wild card, this time ranked in the 30s, into a WTA 500 draw that included Elena Rybakina, ranked 2nd in the world, and Elena Svitolina, ranked 8th, both multiple-time Grand Slam champions, both genuinely dangerous on any surface. She beat Rybakina. Then, in the same tournament, she beat Svitolina too, 2 Grand Slam champions back-to-back on grass as a wild card. A former top 5 men's player who competed at Wimbledon more times than most people can count said publicly, on record, that beating both of them back-to-back was hugely impressive and that it was only a matter of time before she had her real breakthrough. He pointed specifically to the grass suiting her game as a left-hander with a slicing serve that skids away from opponents, and said he genuinely couldn't wait to watch her opening match at Wimbledon. A former world top 5 player said he couldn't wait to watch her play. Let that sit for a second. But here's the part of this story nobody's saying loudly enough. Wimbledon is not Birmingham. Wimbledon is not Berlin. This is the biggest tournament in the sport, a draw that includes Aryna Sabalenka at number 1, Rybakina at number 2, defending champion Iga Swiatek, Coco Gauff, and the reigning French Open champion. These are players who've been winning majors for years, players who train specifically for moments like this every single day. Eala is seeded 29th. If she gets through her first 3 matches, she runs into a top 8 player at Wimbledon at 21 years old, having lost in the first round here last year. Not the second round, the first. She's never gone deep at a major in her career, never won more than 4 matches at a Grand Slam. The grass form is real, the seeding is real and genuinely historic. But the level of competition standing in front of her is just as real. So here's the honest question this video actually deserves. Do you believe she has a real shot at a Wimbledon quarterfinal? Be honest about it. Say yes or no in the comments right now, because if she gets there and you called it early, you're gonna want that comment sitting there as proof. Go back to the seeding itself for a second because the scale of it deserves more than a passing mention. 29th seed, Wimbledon, first Filipino player in history, not first this year. First ever in over 100 years of the tournament. She's also the first player from all of Southeast Asia to be seeded at a Grand Slam since a Thai player back in 2009, 17 years across an entire region home to hundreds of millions of people without a single seeded Grand Slam entrant. And now it's a girl from Pasig City, first coached by a grandfather with a basket of balls who flew to Spain at 13 with no blueprint to follow, who got dismantled on live TV in Rome and quietly came back to beat 2 Grand Slam champions on grass in the same week. That's who's carrying this now. Manny Pacquiao saw it and said so publicly. The greatest Filipino athlete in history, a man who spent decades in the ring making the entire world say the word Philippines every time he walked out, watched her play tennis and said he was proud of her. And the same former Wimbledon contender who praised her Berlin run went a step further, calling her the Manny Pacquiao of Philippine tennis. Think about what that actually means. That's not a compliment about her forehand. That's someone saying this player has become a national identity in her own right. Proof a country points to and says, look what one of us can do. But here's the detail from this whole story that actually stays with you longest. After beating Rybakina and Svitolina in Berlin, in an interview afterwards, someone asked her what being seated at Wimbledon for the first time actually meant to her. She said it felt close to home, not close to her career goals, not close to some ranking target, close to home. Because home for her was never just a country on a map. Home is a court in Pasig. Home is a grandfather who showed up every single day with a basket of tennis balls and no professional credentials, no connections to the tour, no real idea how to get a girl to Wimbledon, just the willingness to show up, put in the work, and love someone hard enough that they'd carry it with them onto every court they ever stood on. He died in 2019. He never saw Miami, never saw Berlin, never saw the seed, but she said herself that so much of her foundation, her mentality, and her bravery on court traces directly back to the tough love and sacrifice he gave her. She walks into Wimbledon as the 29th seed. Her grandfather won't be in the stands, but if you watch how she carries herself, how she doesn't panic when things get difficult, how she simply goes back to work after a loss instead of unraveling, you'll see him in every single shot she hits. That's who Alex Eala actually is. That's why well over 100 million people are watching her right now, and that's why Manny Pacquiao stopped what he was doing to say he was proud. So here's the direct question. How far does she go? First round exit, a deep run, or does she make history again and go further than any Filipino woman has ever gone at a Grand Slam? Drop your prediction in the comments right now because this story is nowhere near finished, and when it happens, you're going to want to be able to say you saw it coming.